What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Arza Chats here, coming at you with another video. And this is a relatively small one, as we're just talking about a simple interview that actor John Turturro did in regards to why he isn't reprising his role as Carmine Falcone in The Penguin Show, claiming that the primary reason is because there's too much violence towards women in The Penguin. So starting over here at Kotaku, unfortunately, John Turturro skipped DC's Penguin series due to all the violence towards women. That's Not My Thing, said Transformers and Barton Fink actor, written by Zach Zweisen. I didn't know he was in Transformers. And this is all coming from a Variety article that he did, where he discussed all the different roles he's currently playing, the ones he played in the past, and why he didn't choose to return to a handful of the ones he did in the last few years. And his two main reasons that he pointed out was because he doesn't have time to do everything, and he wasn't into all the violence directed towards women in the series. In which he says, "In the show, there is a lot of violence towards women, and that's not my thing," said the actor. "While the character was brutal and dangerous in the 2022 movie, the violence happens off-screen," claimed Turturro. "It's scarier that way." In the HBO show, Falcone was played by Mark Strong, who honestly, I didn't really know that they had swapped anyway, because the TV show is infinitely superior to The Penguin, and I think I've wiped most of The Penguin out of my mind, because that movie, let's be honest, is only 1/3 of a good movie. But this is such an utterly moronic, stupid, dumb claim to make. Also, this article is really short, but it's just such an idiotic thing to go ahead and say because it makes no sense. There isn't a whole lot of violence towards women in The Penguin. At least as of what I've seen. I admit I'm 2 episodes behind, which sucks for anyone who cared about my input, but given the fact that my Penguin reviews were only getting about 8 viewers an episode, probably no one actually cared about what I thought about that show. But what I did watch was phenomenal. It is one of the best shows of this year. It probably is the best show this year. With the only show that has any hopes of overtaking it being Arcane Season 2, which I will be doing absolutely 100% reviews of for every episode of that, because I cannot wait. But as of what I've seen so far in the first 4 episodes I watched, there is no violence towards women as a whole. The violence that exists towards women is no different than the violence towards men, and it's not a high violence show unless you're explicitly inside of the mafia. And this kind of just goes back to that one clip from the end of the second episode where the showrunner said that the whole reason people distrust Sophia was because of sexism. Now, supposedly, episode 5 of The Penguin is very much pro-Sophia. Now, like I said, I haven't seen it yet. I need to go and watch it because I love the show as a whole. But I suspect, similarly to what she was saying, how it was all false, and from what I've heard, episode 5 is just as good, if not better, than the rest of the show, and there is no feministic propaganda put into the show through that episode. But the more disappointing part about John Turturro's statements and about this article as a whole is it completely ignores all the actual stuff about the Variety article. As I had gone through and I actually bothered to read that article just to be sure that they were leaving things out, and they left a lot of stuff out. Because of course they did. Now, this claim that the show has a ton of violence towards women is kind of just a throwaway line at the very end of the article, which is such a shame because it completely ruins the rest of the article. This is actually a really heartwarming and very humanizing article about how he handled the loss of his brother and how it related to his experiences as an actor in the roles he's doing right now. It is a very kind and very sweet article that is completely ruined by his last statement. Basically, the gist of the article is it starts off by him talking about the fact that his brother, Ralph Turturro, who had struggled with severe mental illness and had a battle of cancer before his death, and how John Turturro would do things like voices and call him every day to make sure that he would feel better, keep his hopes high during the entire process of treatment. Even when things got bleak, he still made sure to call and make sure that his brother was doing fine and try to keep him happy. And that's a really sweet way to have an interview. And this kind of relates to the main topic of this article, which is actually the show The Room Next Door, which Turturro was also in, which features him playing the husband of a woman whose best friend is dying a terminal illness, who decided to opt for committing suicide rather than dealing with the illness. And so he really felt like there was a connection there. And then that's where he says grief is a part of life, looking at all the different things he's done, all the different roles, and how things get played into it, particularly in regards to The Room Next Door. Even going into the fact that it's hard for him to sometimes break out of the mold of an actor when he's at home or supposed to be more of an individual person and not the actor. Like I said, it's a really sweet article and a really sweet interview that really humanizes him as a person up until we get down to the part of his role as Carmine Falcone. Because in reality, there's only a paragraph dedicated to that. However, Turturro won't reprise his role as Carmine Falcone for the spin-off series The Penguin. Instead, Mark Strong will take on the Mafia Don that Turturro played in The Batman. "I did what I wanted to do with the role," he says. "In the show, there was a lot of violence towards women, and that's not my thing." Now, the weird thing is that comment comes out of left field. It doesn't belong to any part of this article whatsoever or the rest of the interview. It really just comes off as more virtue signaling as an actor who's fading out of his ability to do a lot of roles, probably just trying to get more roles in the future. Because it makes no sense. There's not a whole lot of violence towards women in The Penguin. There wasn't a whole lot of violence towards women in The Batman, so I don't know why he's making this complaint when it wasn't there. This would be like turning down a role in Die Hard because too many birds got killed in the movie. It makes no sense because that has nothing to do with the show. So it really just comes off as another actor throwing in a little bit of a virtue signal whenever they can to avoid the cancel mob coming after them. As well as just a really lazy excuse for why he didn't want to reprise the role for a TV show. If he just said the next part, and this next line is the far better important one, and where he says, "You can't do everything you want to," that's a much better explanation than just complaining about the fact that Falcone rated brutality in The Batman, but in the 2022 movie, his cruelty was implied rather than illustrated. It happens off screen, Turturro says. It's scarier that way. So he's not even doing any violence to women. The violence is completely implied, which means, like he says, you don't see any of it. Which means there is no real violence being done to women in this movie, which makes his point even more moot and even more confusing. And it's always such a shame whenever an actor has to go out and make an interview like this, because in reality it's a really good interview that really humanizes him, but instead he had to waste everyone's time in virtue signal. And really the number one reason why these kinds of headlines are always such a disappointment to see is because of two reasons. One, Kotaku gets clicks because they're the people who are reporting it on the most, blaming that as the reason, as well as giving Variety the ability to make such a clickbaity headline that really doesn't actually apply to the article or interview that was shown to us. As well as the fact that it's giving a bunch of people in my sphere of the internet on Twitter who are just posting the headline without reading the full article. Because it's just such a stupid statement it's the kind of thing that you're going to go, that you look at and go, of course you're going to say that. It's so stereotypical, it's so expected, and it's so pointless as a way to virtue signal to everyone around you, and I don't know what the point of it was. And even more so, for the people who do care about these kind of things, especially like the Penguin, it just comes off as feeling more disingenuous and as a way to put down the role that people really liked him in, and it just makes him seem like a bit of an asshole who doesn't actually care about the art of acting or his stuff in general, especially because of the fact that he can't seem to separate the art that he's making from reality. But that's pretty much all I've got. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this statement, and if you think it's something that's just the kind of offhand comment that doesn't really matter, or if you think he's trying to virtue signal, or this is just his job application for when his roles in his current shows fade away. But that's all I've got, so I will see you guys on the next one.